President Trump is starting his second term with a hard stance on immigration. Tonight, he unveiled those 10 plans, those 10 executive orders, all about border and immigration policy. And we can go through some of them real quick here. Trump is starting his second term with a hard stance on immigration. Tonight, he unveiled those 10 plans, those 10 executive orders, all about border and immigration policy. And we can go through some of them real quick here. The big one, Trump is declaring a national emergency at the border. He's also ending the catch and release program, which allows detainees to go free until their court dates. Third, he's bringing back the Remain in Mexico policy, which would require migrants to get asylum in Mexico until their court dates here. Mexico President Claudia Sheinbaum is pretty clear she's not on board with that one yet, but he's talking about possible tariffs on Mexico. And next, he's ending birthright citizenship, which we understood was guaranteed by the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. He's also designated drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. Joining us now is an incredible panel of our friends, Washington correspondent Yamiche Alcindor and NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos. Yamiche, there is so much pomp and circumstance of the signing of the pins that we saw thrown into the crowd and then the Oval Office there. And then there's the implementation. What do you see going into effect first here?
Well, it's really important that you talk about the implementation. And I know you touched on some of the executive orders, but because there was really a flurry of them, I want to walk folks through some of them and then talk about which ones could be implemented in short order. So, of course, he declared a national emergency at the border. He also is pushing to end birthright citizenship. Hopefully we can put it up for folks. This is part of the U.S. Constitution. So for that one, that's going to be something that's going to be harder to implement, and there will be legal challenges there. But the national security, the national emergency effect, that would be pretty immediate. There's also the end the catch and release of undocumented immigrants. Reinstating Remain in Mexico is an interesting one because already we've seen the CPB-1 application, which was set up under the Biden administration as a way to curb people crossing into the southwest border illegally to request asylum. That's going to be something that's already gone. We've already seen migrants at the border crying, saying that they wanted to be using that app. He's also going to resume border wall construction. That's something that could happen in short order. Suspend the refugee resettlement for at least 4 months and then designate criminal cartels and others as foreign terrorist groups. That's something that could happen in short order. And then to clarify the military's role in protecting the territorial integrity of the United States. That's going to be an interesting one to watch because the big question is, will there be troops on the border? The Trump administration and officials say that that's something that they want to see happen. How quickly we see that happen will be very interesting. Part of the reason why we have to talk about how quickly all of this happens is because we're already seeing legal challenges tonight go into effect. So as we look at that list of places and look at that list of things that are happening, we should just keep in mind that some of these are already being challenged in court. Gotti?
Yeah, and Danny, right now, I mean, birthright citizenship, you read the Constitution, it seems pretty clearly protected by the 14th Amendment. Does signing this executive order do anything against the Constitution, or is this just definitely setting this up for a legal showdown in court?
Yes to your second question. This will obviously be challenged right away. But this issue actually came up way back during the first Trump administration. And when it first came up, I have to admit, I heard that and I immediately thought, well, wait a minute. Birthright citizenship is as immutable a law, immutable a right as some of the other rights enshrined in the Constitution. And then I read about it and I found some really interesting academic articles. And the thinking goes like this. The language says anyone born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. And there's a lot of debate about what that means. And there are those on the right who say that, well, subject to the jurisdiction thereof means that, say, the child of an ambassador comes here from another country, has a child. That child is not a citizen by means of birthright citizenship. So the thinking goes on that side that it is not a guarantee because that person must be additionally subject to the jurisdiction, and the jurisdiction means someone arguably was already a citizen. That's the thinking. So now we're going to find what happens when the rubber meets the road. We're going to see this go to court, and I imagine we're going to see it go to court relatively quickly.
Yeah, I mean, that is quite the heavy lift that the word "and" is doing. It makes sense as you lay it out there. But when we're talking about sending things to court right now, he's got a slim majority in both the House and the Senate. He's got a very friendly Supreme Court. He's going to be appointing judges left and right here. Like, what does the judiciary look like under Trump? And when these challenges are referred to the judiciary, like, what does it look like is going to happen?
Is that for me? If so, yes. The judiciary, yeah. We already know what the judiciary looks like because we've had a test run, 4 years under Trump 1, and now here we are in Trump 2. And if you want an idea of what kinds of folks he appoints to courts, you can look at the Supreme Court. You can look at some of the lower courts, everyone from district court. You got Aileen Cannon up to the Supreme Court. You have 3 justices. Really rare for a president in one term to get 3 justices. But that is the roll of the dice that the Constitution created by allowing for presidential appointment of justices. Some presidents get a lot. Some presidents might get none. They might get 1. So it's all about luck at this point. There are some justices that are likely to either no longer be on the bench after these 4 years. So he may be appointing more to the Supreme Court. But to take a look at who he appoints, you just look at who he's appointed. And it's obviously people who are Federalist Society types, people who are textualists, originalists, and exactly the kinds of folks he's appointed already. And by the way, the modern trend is young. Look for young. If there's a 23-year-old, 24-year-old judge that can be appointed and he can get him through Congress, he will. That's the new model for judges because they serve for life.
24 years old. Interesting. And Yamiche, Trump also talked a lot about the Alien Enemies Act. I want to play that clip for you if you've got it.
And by invoking the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, I will direct our government to use the full and immense power of federal and state law enforcement to eliminate the presence of all foreign gangs and criminal networks bringing devastating crime to U.S. soil, including our cities and inner cities.
1798. I mean, the Alien Enemies Act, that is definitely a wartime measure, and yet declaring war on cartels, they didn't have like drones and precision strikes and like SEAL teams in 1798. All of this kind of feels like there's the possibility of setting up action against cartels in another country, Mexico perhaps. Yamiche, do you think we might see military action in a place like Mexico or possibly Colombia or somewhere in Latin America?
It's a good question. We're not quite sure what the answer is going to be. Time will tell. We know for a fact that this new Trump administration is directing the military to prioritize the border, prioritize really putting what they call the territorial integrity of the United States front and center of the military. I also think we have to think about what is the Alien Enemies Act. And I had to look it up myself. It allows presidents to detain, relocate, and deport non-citizens from a country considered an enemy of the United States during wartime. And this has only been used 3 times in history. The first time was in the War of 1812. Then you had World War I and World War II. So it has been used before, but for it to be used in this way would be different. So we have to see how the Trump administration really does this. But there is this sense in talking to Trump administration officials today that they are